Hello and welcome to another episode of The Partial Historians. I am one of your excellent hosts, Dr. Greenfield.
And I dare to say that the radness is even more excellent, not really.
More excellent,
No.
Wow. I like to think we share power, unlike a certain...
I was going to say, I thought that last week gave me ideas, and I don't want to share this power anymore.
Yeah, you don't?
No.
Oh.
This partial historians can only be partial. It's going to be even more partial.
Your own partiality.
Exactly.
Dear listeners, if you've been following the Romulus and Remus caper of the last episode, all of this begins to make much more sense.
Yes. All right.
Are you positioning yourself as a Romulus figure?
Maybe I can move on, because our next king of Rome is a little bit more peaceful.
Yes.
Yeah.
Numa Pompilius.
Okay, yeah, so maybe I'll just channel him for a little while we talk about him.
Yeah,
and maybe we'll see at the end of the episode if I feel differently. If not, this book.
I have many books in front of me, dear listeners. So much source material.
Indeed. So we're dealing, as we mentioned last time, with still these sort of semi-mythical times of Rome.
Oh, look, we're still deep in mythic times. We're going to be there for a while.
Yeah.
Be prepared.
Yeah. So after Romulus, sets himself up a bit and, gets some women folk in Rome and whatnot, he rules for apparently quite a significant chunk of time.
Well, everybody likes the number 37.
Very precise.
Yes. Very precise. The city is founded in 753. If you take away 37, that gives you another number.
Yeah.
I'm not a mathematician.
That's the number we're talking about.
That's the number where we're at, guys. To conclude, I think, and to present a nice introduction to Numa,
yes.
The death of Romulus is
Some
important.
of you might be cheering for this.
Yeah, well...
Romulus might not have been the most likeable person, given his... Yeah.
He may not have set himself up to be liked. He was firm, did what he wanted, and achieved what he set out to do.
And perhaps he did what he wanted a little too much towards the end.
Do you think so?
Maybe, yes. I've heard rumours in some sources that Romulus was cut up into little pieces.
Wow.
And smuggled out of a meeting.
Well,
and that's how he seemed to one day just vanish.
That would be a highly cynical and negative reading.
All right. So what's your reading then?
So
yeah.
There's a gathering.
This
might be a slightly more mythic reading.
Okay.
There is a gathering. He's talking in front of his soldiers.
Right.
Planning the next offensive. A bolt of lightning.
What?
Out of nowhere.
Get out.
Strikes Romulus. We think.
Yeah. And
everybody's blinded for a moment. Everybody comes to. The sky's clear. Everybody's vision clears. Romulus, gone.
Amazing.
I
can't believe I didn't think of that version before.
It is the most logical conclusion to his life.
Yeah.
Somebody
appears to suddenly...
Conveniently, one of the Roman citizens later swears that he saw Romulus ascend to heaven.
Oh, good. So we can be sure of where he went. Good.
Yep.
I feel relieved to know that he was not murdered.
The lightning came down out of the
for
sky.
being a little bit severe upon his conscience.
Well, I mean, the alternative political stabbing, cutting up, hiding the body thing, that would also work.
Very serial killer.
Yeah, although I think it would take a little bit more time.
Yeah.
To do the choppy.
Yeah.
Than to do the lightning bolt from the sky.
That's true. That's true.
I think more people would have known. In any case, Romulus is gone and he gets deified essentially.
Yeah.
And
apparently he becomes Quirinus.
Yes, Quirinus. Yes.
Because that is a god. Like the Romans, as we mentioned before, I think more or less adopt the Greek gods.
Oh, this is dangerous territory. Yeah. I don't think Quirinus has got anything to do with Greek gods.
No, that's what I'm saying. But Quirinus is one of those gods that is definitely nothing to do with Greek gods.
Whew.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Whew.
Yeah, so he's not one of the Olympic,
No, not at all.
Jupiter, Zeusy type.
His powers are a little bit sus,
and so, it makes sense
knows.
that he's actually, the deified version of Romulus, because Romulus is also a Roman, uniquely Roman man.
Indeed. Maybe the first Roman.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah, so he's dead.
Interestingly, yeah, this leaves us in a conundrum, because it turns out, despite the acquisition of many Sabine women, Romulus doesn't really have an heir.
Again, I feel parallels to Augustus.
Feel away, my friend. Feel away.
I know, and again, we're in a situation where everyone's like, what? Wait, actually, no. I'll be a little bit more PC. WTF? What are we going to do now?
This is where things start to get interesting for the Romans, because they're like, okay, well, now we've reached this scenario where we don't have our leader anymore. What do we do?
Yeah.
And they decide on a power share system.
Yes.
Essentially.
Like a rotation.
Yeah, rotation. Everybody gets to like be in charge for like 12 hours.
Yeah. That way no one can possibly accrue too much power.
There will be no accruing of power in 12 hours. Like, good luck to you. Yeah. Plutarch very handily provides this specific number, although whether you want to believe that is anybody's guess.
I have to admit, I feel bad for people who get the night shift.
Yeah. You got like 2 spaces of 6 hours, like go for that and take like a break in the middle, but like after that your turn is over.
Yeah.
And they divide this up amongst the patricians, which under Romulus numbered 100 and Plutarch suggests might be 150 at this stage, which suggests that maybe there's been an increase, growth in the city. In any case, we've got what ends up being called the interregnum period.
Yeah. Which might have something to do with being in between kings.
In between kings. Yes.
In between Reichses.
And while they're going through this process, the patricians talk to the rest of the citizens, and they're like, you guys should be involved, like, we need to, like, choose somebody. You guys...
What are your thoughts, man?
Yeah, like,
what are you thinking?
Do you think you know anybody who'd be good for this? Yeah. And the citizens just basically get, like, really scared and suspicious of what might be going on here. And they're like...
Is that a trick question?
Like, hells no, I'm not getting involved in that decision. Like, you guys decide.
Yeah.
So Rome has this sort of, like, quasi, like, sort of thrust towards possible democracy that they totally shy away from.
Well, they're kind of like, almost like they're trying to be polite, I suppose. We're like, no, you take the last cupcake. No, you. I insist.
Seriously.
No. You go first. Yeah.
I think the rest of the people in Rome are just sort of like, I just don't know how to get involved, and I really think this is quite dangerous.
Yeah. So Wise move, I would suggest.
The interregnum continues.
Yeah.
At a certain point, though, everybody starts to get concerned about this situation being like not a looking for a king situation, but like a solidifying oligarchy. Yeah. Where the patricians are kind of like, all right, so we've got this cabal of power now. Yeah. And even though we've only got a 12-hour shift, like, what if I organise my 12-hour shift and your 12, you know? And everybody starts to get worried that
people are in cahoots.
Yeah. This is not really like an equal power sharing situation. This is actually just creating a sort of a political nightmare.
Surprisingly, people still manage to accrue power.
You'd be surprised.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So maybe they should just pick someone and get it over with already.
Yeah,
but who can follow the warrior king, Romulus?
Well, you know, I mean, funnily enough, perhaps ironically or perhaps not ironically, depending on the sources that you read, they eventually settle on Numa, who is of Sabine origin.
What?
Power has come full circle.
Indeed.
Rome is no longer Rome.
Yeah. Because that's just it. As we talked about in the previous episode, what with the abduction of the Sabine women and the settling down...
The Sabines are pretty involved in Roman politics at this point in time.
There's a bit of a mix of people in Rome.
They've got a lot to say.
Yeah. And unsurprisingly, perhaps, there's still a little bit of tension between the Sabine community and the...
Yes.
I suppose more or less native Romans.
Yeah, and there's a bit of like factionalism going on because part of the discussion in this interregnum period is, should we select somebody from Rome or should we select somebody from the Sabine region? Yeah. Because of everything
the tensions.
Yeah, because of everything that's happened.
We're starting to feel bad about that whole rape thing.
Well, I mean, the Sabines sort of argue that they've had just as much to do with Rome and
the founding
of the city, that they're really like partial, like, no, I'm not going to say that. I retract that. Yeah. that they're equal players. Yes. In the city, and they want to have a say.
Yes, definitely.
And they make Numa is a really strategic choice because by all reports, he's above reproach.
Yeah, I mean, God,
this sounds unlikely, guys. But
Talk about your perfection prince. I mean, God. He even apparently has a relationship of a romantic nature with a goddess. He's that awesome.
Yeah, well, I mean, how else do you legitimize your claim to power in this?
Chuck a goddess in, say that you go for long walks on the beach. Wait, no, not the beach. The hills. Yeah.
We spent some time in groves together.
Indeed. But anyway, so Numa's about apparently 40 years old.
Yeah, well, according to... and again, thank you, Plutarch.
Yeah.
Numa is born on the same date as the city of Rome is founded.
That seems fortuitous.
Very fortuitous. And so he is 37 when Romulus dies, and then they spend about 2 years trying to figure out what the hell's going on.
Yeah.
And so by the time they get the interregnum thing organised, and Numa is like, comfortably into his like early 40s.
Yeah. Good. That's a sensible age to be king.
Yes.
Or consul later on.
Yes. if you're feeling a sense in which the age is a symbol, I think you should run with that.
Yeah. Okay. So Numa is kind of, as we've probably been hinting at, polar opposite to Romulus personality-wise.
Well, not only does he have a goddess for a wife.
Yeah. Eventually. Not all the time.
No, not all the time.
He has to earn it.
He does have a real world wife in the beginning.
Yes.
He's apparently, first of all, married to the daughter of the king of the Sabines, the most famous king of the Sabines, Tatius, who spends a lot of time trying to knock down Rome and being rather unsuccessful at that.
So, again, so fortuitous that we have this mingling of peoples in a peaceful way.
So Numa does have these royal connections to the Sabine royal family.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, his wife, she dies prior to him becoming...
But that frees him up.
It does free him up.
Goddesses that are running the
for a
graves.
divine liaison, if you like.
Yeah. Yeah, but...
and he's also the sort of figure who resists rule as well.
Exactly. And as we talked about before with other people when we get into the Principate, who else would you want but someone who doesn't want power?
Yeah, I mean, the best ruler is the one that doesn't want the power.
Exactly, the reluctant leader.
Yeah. So when Numa is first approached about this sort of stuff, because he's been nominated, he goes into this huge vacillation period where he's like, no,
Don't think so.
I'm not that sort of person. I'm not interested in that type of power.
Exactly.
And everyone's like...
shucks, but come on.
Yeah.
No,
he's like, no.
Stop. Don't do it. Okay.
You're forcing my hand, but I'll do it.
Yeah.
And I've got some plans for reform, guys.
Yeah, because Numa, he's not altogether comfortable, I think, with the aggressiveness of the Roman character at this point in time.
He seems to be classified far more as a philosopher king.
Yeah, definitely. And so he does focus a lot of his attention on religious matters the city.
He does.
And Dr. G, I'm going to say a word which I say far too often to you because I know how it excites you.
Ooh.
Vestal.
Hello. You're touching me on all the right spots.
Yeah. I know how to. Why wouldn't I?
So.
Yeah.
I mean, well, just before we get into that, because I will definitely go there.
I just couldn't resist. I had to jump in.
I will. Yeah, I know. I'm jumping with you, believe me.
Yeah.
So when he turns up in Rome after he's decided, yes, I will take the power, he makes sure that he takes the auguries to elicit some sort of sense that Romulus is actually on board with this.
How sweet.
Yeah, it's nice. It's nice.
It's like when you're remarrying someone who's a widow, you know?
Yeah.
Just want to make sure that the partner who's passed on is all good with that situation.
Because he wants to follow the traditional forms, and obviously Romulus has used augury as a way of establishing his own legitimacy. So Numa does the same thing as a mirror reflection of that.
And may I just point out as well that Numa has apparently been living in the countryside a lot.
Yes.
Where all is pure and well,
yes.
not the city.
Yeah. So, being a non-urban type,
indeed,
he fits very nicely into this idea of the rustic Roman who's with the land and all of this sort of jazz.
Absolutely, simple life. Simple
needs, life.
Yeah.
And he does what he needs to do, but it's not the life that he wants for himself. And this is what makes his liaison with Egeria, this goddess. useful for him because it gives him a way of retreating out of the urban space to spend time and spending time with Egeria in the groves. And this tends to be where he comes up with his best stuff. Yeah. So what can I say?
He's so wise, out of this world.
Yeah, he must be getting help from somebody in that grove. I reckon there's some sort of divine figure in there.
Oh yeah,
probably a woman.
No mortal man could be this clever.
Yeah. And
anyway,
so he starts, he goes on this law-giving process, and this sort of puts him in line with a whole bunch of sort of figures of the ancient world, this idea of the lawgiver.
Yeah. Because you need to set that shit down.
Yeah, you do. You do. And although Romulus is obviously a founder figure for the city, this idea of the law-giving is the sort of the imparting of a civilized process into the structure of society.
This is more about, setting up the essentials and establishing territory.
We have a city.
Yeah. We've got a city, you've got women, and a means to breed, and now I die.
And I leave you.
Yeah.
In your time of
Hopefully
great
you'll
chaos.
have some wise sort of philosopher, lawgiver, goddess, loving king to follow.
Sorry I didn't have enough children for you.
Exactly.
But so Numa has this approach where it's very much focused on establishing the credentials of Rome from sort of like a moral perspective in a way. Like if we think of laws as like this ethical type of process, he's interested in distinguishing between times of warfare and times of peace.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
The Temple of Janus is one of his big contributions, where you can visually signal with the temple itself and the doors whether Rome is in a state of war or in a state of peace. Yeah. And Numa is like...
And interesting, I suppose that Janus is the god of doorways. Amongst other things.
He is the two-faced god.
Yeah. In fact, he does also do something else with Janus, with the calendar, does he not?
Well, there is a whole set of sort of calendar reforms that Numa introduces.
Because apparently there were like some months which were about 11 days and others that were like 35. And the original Roman calendar apparently started with March, the month of Mars.
Yeah, well, that makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, but to get the Romans, again, away from this pesky war stuff that they've been caught up in.
Let's reorganise that calendar, guys.
Exactly, yeah. He invents 2 new months. And January... So, you see?
Hello.
Janus's month, new beginnings, or, endings, it's all happening. It's a time of interconnection. You can see where it comes from, Yeah, so he sets things up sort of a little bit more orderly, and also, again, just removes that focus a little bit, shifts it a little bit to the left, so that the war is not all that Rome is about. Yeah. Apparently.
No, it's good. I mean, he sets up this sort of, the calendar is based on the cycles of the moon now.
Yes. Much more orderly.
Yeah, they do have, obviously that doesn't solve all of their problems because there's still some intercalculatory days that they have to figure out further down the track. Yeah. But nevertheless, like, he sets up this sort of regular
He's ironed out some of the kinks.
And look, there's almost nothing more powerful than defining the way people mark time.
It's interesting, isn't it?
Fascinating. We're not going to see anything quite as exciting like this with time until we get to Caesar.
Indeed. Calendar reform
is massive.
You'll be hanging out for the next calendar chat.
No, but seriously. If you divide up time and you ask people to conceive of time in a different way, that changes the order of everything.
Yeah, the order of the year. The way they live their lives.
Yeah, the whole process changes.
The festivals that they celebrate.
Yeah,
so very interesting.
And to get into some of the minutiae of calendar reform.
Please do. I can't have enough of this calendar chat we're having.
Wow. Yeah. He also goes through and decides which days are going to be...
Holy days?
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah, holy days and the not holy days. And so this means there's a distinguishment made between days which are fas, days in which it's appropriate to conduct business, and days which are nefas, where no business shall be done for fear of insulting the gods.
Yeah, and he wants all the attention of the Roman populace to be on the festival or the celebration at hand, to absorb all that holiness.
Yeah. So there's this idea in which, like, religiosity and the participation in the religious practice and process is governed by the calendar as well.
Absolutely.
So
I get where you're coming from.
Yeah, so if we're thinking about calendars as a mechanism of power.
Yeah.
Oh,
absolutely. I think how many days you would get off work now.
Oh, man.
Yeah. If you could live at any time where you want a lot of holidays, the ancient world is the place to go.
Yeah, so like he's got all these things in place, like he's got the calendar, he's got these days to do business and to not do business, and this means that he really needs to create a priest structure. There needs to be...
I was going to say, it's all very well to have holidays.
Yeah, but what do you do on holidays?
Exactly. You need festivals.
You need festivals, and you need people to do the stuff that needs to be done at festivals. Exactly. Like conduct the sacrifices.
Yeah, and look impressive in their outfits and stuff.
Yeah. And to make it like even more complicated, he creates a range of positions, essentially.
Absolutely. Not just one priesthood.
No. A number. So he appoints a flamen, so a type of priest, to Jupiter.
Yeah.
And this is like the guy that helps him out with all of his kingly priestly stuff.
Yeah.
And then he has other flamens to other gods as well, because obviously that's important.
Got to cover all bases.
So, Mars is obviously an important god, so he gets a flamen now.
Yeah.
And one for Quirinus. Hello, Romulus. Gets his own flamen.
Yeah.
And...
Yeah, because even though Romulus might have been a bit of a bastard towards the end, it's all good to deify.
But he does also institute a new set of Vestal virgins. So...
So... Because I have to admit, I did have a moment where I got a bit confused, because we read all about, Romulus and Remus's mother being a Vestal, and then you think to yourself, wait a second.
Wait a minute.
If Numa is setting up the Vestals, how is that possible? Or did my mind just get blown by chronology?
No, it didn't. So, I mean, the cult of Vesta is not Rome specific.
Gotcha.
What happens is that Rome becomes very Italy specific, and comes to dominate the region, and so its version of the Vestal cult becomes the most prominent.
Yeah.
But as far as we can tell, each of these places in Italy, or at least Alba Longa, has its own set of Vestal virgins.
How intriguing.
Yeah, so they're all looking after their own half-fire, which represents the city.
Yeah, because he gives them the fire, and it's like, watch it, doesn't he?
Here is the fire.
Yeah.
Don't let it go out.
Because it's in this particular life of Plutarch that we get a lot of the rules about Vestal life, isn't it? He goes into quite a lot of detail about, what happens if they're not chaste, tisk, and the bearer alive, and all that kind of jazz. And what happens if they're a little bit naughty.
Yes. And so we have this, like Numa seems to be a man who's really interested in detail. Now whether you want to... Now, whether you want to take this as a sense in which... the Romans are imputing a lot of basic structural components of their culture to one person, because that's very convenient to do so.
It's much easier. Like all these mythological stories, they're all probably about things that happened over a very gradual period of time.
Yeah.
But isn't it nice to wrap it all up in one
story? I mean, isn't it good to say, well, Numa did that? And conveniently that's what these narratives do for us.
Yeah.
So it's taking a whole bunch of things which obviously are very set in stone by the time the Romans are writing these sorts of sources down, and they're imputing a lot of information which probably takes successive generations to develop to one person. Nevertheless, he does accordingly. Forgetting about the problems with this at the moment. Sets up the pontifex.
Yes, and what like the chief of priests.
Well, and this chief of priests. I mean, I feel like I need to. There's a good way to conceptualize the pontifex in the sense.
Please do.
Well, having gone through and had a look at Livy again, and this idea of the pontifex and what the role of the pontifex really is. They're supposed to know basically what the calendar is for religious events. They're supposed to be on top of like what should take place at each of these different holy days, like what sacrifices should take place, when things should happen, who should be doing that sort of stuff.
They kind of keep track and then delegate.
And also things relating to funeral observations, talking to the dead in various ways, so chthonic aspects of religious activity.
Really?
And what this basically amounts to, when I was thinking about this earlier, it makes the pontifex, he's basically like a huge accountant. He's like a religious accountant, and sort of like, or even like a religious solicitor, if you like. The sort of person that you go to when you have a question about how things should be done. The pontifex will be like, I will just check the documentation for that, and I will tell you precisely.
I have a response to you in 10 days or less.
Yeah. It's like, oh, the Festival of Parleys, you say. Well, I'll get down the tome on parleys, and look, it's going to be section 37, point B that you're really interested in here. The Pontifex isn't the chief priest. At least
not so much as keeping things in check.
Well, not the chief priest in the sense of like the
central bureaucrat.
But in the Numa way of thinking about it, the Pontifex is like the bureaucrat who looks after everything detail wise.
I get that. I get how that.
And
works.
I kind of really like that idea of like,
it's administrative basically.
He's a huge religious administrator.
Yeah. But Numa, I mean, he's genuinely, I think, quite a religious person. So, the idea of...
It seems fairly clear that he is, yes.
Yeah. So, the idea of, wanting to make sure that everything keeps in check, I don't think it's just about red tape, I think he...
We want to cut through red tape.
Yeah, exactly. We want to keep this... Well, we want to create red tape by making all
Numa is all about the red tape.
Yeah.
We're cutting through that red tape.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I can understand how it would be important for him to have someone in that position going, right, guys, let's get on to this,
Yeah, and as far as I'm concerned, that seems to be like the chief way in which Numa is conceived.
Yeah.
As this sort of oppositional, not oppositional to Romulus in any particular way, but oppositional in terms of what he represents for the Romans.
Absolutely.
A bit of a redemptive figure.
Definitely, because according to a lot of our sources, he does bring about a legitimate change in the Romans. They are a little bit calmer. Apparently all the...
Calm down, people.
Yeah, apparently being forced to watch religious procession after religious procession and various sacred dances calms you down.
Yeah. It has this sort of palliative effect on one's soul.
Yeah.
Which is, ideal, I suppose, in many respects.
Absolutely, yeah. So the idea that this actually does work, like his ideas, they're just crazy enough to work.
He has success in these areas.
Yeah, definitely. It explains, I suppose... I don't know how it really explains anything about the Roman character, but it definitely has that nicens them up a little bit.
Yeah, but and this does mean that Numa is ultimately held up as this sort of figure to be emulated in particular ways.
Ooh, yes. Yeah, later on, people, it's quite the compliment, isn't it, to be likened to
Numa, the sort of the ideal ruler who resists rule, and then when placed in a position to rule, has the feeling of the people as the sort of guiding. It's sort of like the helpful father who's like, I know you want to go to war, but let's just think about this for a moment, and so he garners a lot of respect.
Yeah, and he also does a bit of, another thing that I suppose peaceful type rulers tend to do. The buildings as well. Doesn't he also establish not just temples to say, Vesta and Janus, but he also builds the Regia, the royal house, does not he? Yes.
does not he?
Yes. Getting very pompous in my episode.
Yes, he does not he. Yeah, so we've got these sort of architectural...
expanding in the city. Making it all very grand and nice indeed. Yes. And so they're his main contributions, I think. Really.
Yeah, well, I have to say, I think I feel like I've said all I have to say really about him. He's a lovely figure. He dies. Everybody's a bit sad.
We can go into, unfortunately.
Yeah, almost no scandal at all, unless sleeping with a goddess.
Well, yes, apparently not everyone believes that. Some people are skeptical about whether a goddess.
What?
Sure, a goddess would have like a platonic relationship with a person, but would they have a carnal relationship with a person?
I don't know.
Plutarch begs to differ.
Yeah,
and Plutarch even says that after Numa unfortunately passes away, that the kings who followed him made him look even better because they weren't all that awesome, unfortunately.
Oh well, that sets us up really nicely for the next episode, doesn't it?
Yeah. So Numa's star is firmly implanted.
Good.
Indeed. So I'll see you for a slightly less pleasant king next time, Dr.
Oh, I look forward to that much. Thank you, listeners.